You shared with me lately about a pretty profound sounding experience, psychedelic experience you've had.
Well, the most recent experience I had was with psilocybin, and it was on indigenous land in British Columbia with a group of indigenous leaders who are committed to bringing trauma healing to their communities. And they wanted to use mushrooms as one modality. But first, before they want to introduce healing to their communities, they want to heal themselves. It was in a beautiful valley with this mountain laced with cloud and buffalo grazing in the field in front of us. Mm. And these indigenous people, for reasons that have to do with Canada's colonial history, they've been tormented and tortured and deprived and oppressed for hundreds of years. So they have pain like nobody has pain. Because I don't know anybody else who've been tormented so severely for so many generations. Literally, in each family, with each generation of children. It's not even that the families suffer together, it's that the children were abducted from their families and made to suffer in isolation. So it was in that context that I took the mushrooms with them, working with them before and after, but I did the ceremony with them, and it was one of the deepest, it's hard to compare experiences, but I experienced love for myself for the first time in my life. I didn't think it, it's not an emotion that I felt, it was an experience that I had. And that's made a huge shift in my life. I mean, I'm a different person. Or I'm more myself, I should say. And after some initial difficulties, this has also made a huge difference in my relationship with my wife as well. So, more in generally, the psychedelics over the last 12 years that I've been doing them have created many profound shifts, sometimes more temporary, sometimes more lasting. But they've also taught me a lot about life, about nature, about people, about myself, about the possibilities of healing, about the depth of the human soul, about the possibilities for spiritual experiences, about working through deep traumas without needing decades of psychotherapy. It's not the major part of what I do. I mean, it's a relatively small part of what I do, but it's the deepest. It's as deep as anything else that I do, and sometimes much more astonishing than anything else that I do. My trauma work and my work with people affects how I work with psychedelics, and then the realizations I get with psychedelics affects how I work with people. So there's a mutual, interactive relationship. I see the psychedelic movement is growing, and especially as more and more research comes online to convince slow-minded public authorities to make it less illegal or more available. You know, I mean, the legal situation of psychedelics is ridiculous as compared to the good they could do versus the potential harm versus all the substances that are perfectly legal and are much more dangerous to people than any psychedelic. But it's going to take research to convince the authorities to recognize the obvious. But it's going to grow. It's going to grow also because the Western modalities of treatment for mental health conditions, but chronic physical health conditions, are so poor and they're so self-evidently inadequate. So people are turning to different modalities.
In the work that we do, there's a sense of a real effective healing power to the group process. People often talk about feeling more connected, a sense of belonging and homecoming.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
The first time I decided to work with ayahuasca, I decided that we can't just bring a bunch of strangers together for ceremony. We have to create a community so that people can feel safe and people can support each other and get to know each other and maintain a contact afterwards. Because human beings are by nature social creatures. Like we're told, you know, this ideology that we're individualists and in competition and selfish, it's a travesty of what human nature is all about. We would not have evolved if we were not social creatures. We wouldn't have existed as a species. So it's built into our DNA and built into our brains. Now, trauma, on the other hand, isolates people. So the essence of trauma is isolation. Trauma happens to people, kids who are isolated, and it isolates people even more. Had there been connection, the trauma wouldn't have happened.
Mm.
So it makes sense, therefore, that the healing of trauma requires, in most cases, connection with others. And not just connection with the healer or the shaman or the therapist, but connection with people that are your equals and your partners and whose stories resonate with yours and who support you and whom you can support. So there's a give and take, which is the essence of healing.
It really resonates with, we've been going through a very big process with people lately, a lot of groups.
Yeah.
And it's been coming up again and again that people kind of were in awe or even surprised by how the psychedelic was a powerful tool, but the actual group process was what brought the deepest healing and a sense of belonging, and them to be able to break out of their shell or feel this connection that they thought they could never feel with others from totally different backgrounds.
And also the energy of a group is very different than the energy of an individual. The higher energies of a group elevate everybody. So all those are reasons, and especially with the vulnerability that psychedelic work opens up, you really need group support. And also, even doing the experience itself, knowing that you're not alone in it, and even hearing the struggles and joys of other people during ceremony, it reminds you that you're not alone, that you're connected.